I I'm not the greatest tester for endurance-based tests, and I think that was a bit of a mindset thing as well, kind of coming through. But I tried to impress in my drills instead, try and make up for it there. So at the end of the day, it's just a test, and they're not going to judge your whole footy career on it. So I think that was kind of how I wrapped my head around it.
You're listening to the One-on-One Football Podcast, the number one podcast for Aussie Rules training, coaching and development tips.
Welcome back to the One-on-One Football Podcast. Andrew Rains here, founder of One-on-One Football. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Harry Symington. How you going, mate?
Yeah, thanks, Rainsey. Good to be back, mate. Going well. We're still in lockdown here in Melbourne, of course, but we've had some great news this week that outdoor recreation is back. So our Melbourne-based coaches can reconnect with their athletes one-on-one, which is fantastic. But it also means I can finally get back to the golf course and start slicing golf balls into the water again. So so that's good news. Rainsey, question for you, mate. Who was your favourite speaker at the Footy IQ online masterclass last week?
Yeah, it was a fantastic day, that wasn't it, and a good lead into the grand final. Obviously, we're pre-recording this in time, so obviously going to be a bit later in the date that our listeners are listening to now. But my favourite, it's hard to go past Took and Katie, wasn't it? They're just bouncing off each other. Incredible insight to all Australians, and really fortunate to get those two guys on board to give up their time, especially such a busy schedule they both had. But yeah, they're outstanding. Obviously, the other coaches were magnificent in their keynote presentations, but yeah, they were the standout for me. You?
Yeah, I'd lean toward Katie and Took as well. I actually really enjoyed Josh Fraser's presentation on personal development plans. He shared a little template that he uses with his VFL players, which I thought was fantastic. So yeah, I was hooked by Fraser. So just to be different, I'll say Fraser's one.
No, we're looking forward to launching more of those, and stay tuned for our services that we keep releasing, and one of those is the online masterclasses with building our footy IQ and knowledge for coaches and footballers. Now, Harry, we've finished up talking to this week's guest, rising star Ellie McKenzie, or she's already probably a star, who's pretty big in the AFLW now after her first year. She grew up in Melbourne. She played for Fitzroy Juniors. And obviously Northern Knights in the NAB League. She was a number one pick, and the AFLPA's best first year player last year. And something I do have in common with her, even though we're probably around 15 years apart in age, both got a runner-up in the Richmond Best and Fairest, so a great tie there to the football club. What can our listeners expect from today's episode?
Yeah, absolutely. We had a great chat. Ellie's a very well-spoken young person, and has a really sort of great attitude on football and a really good perspective on development. Some of my favourite things from the chat were sort of how she reflected on her debut season at Richmond. She doesn't get caught in the headlights, I don't think. She's got a really good head on her shoulders. She spoke to us as well about how the development plan at Richmond really incorporates working on your weapons in addition to the areas of improvement, which is something that we're huge on here at the at One-on-One Football. Obviously, friend of the show, Katie Brennan, she spoke about Katie's influence and how her leadership's really helped her sort of find her feet in the AFLW. Obviously, quite similar players, midfield, and also have that ability to play up forward as well. So a great role model there for Ellie. And for the younger listeners out there, she went into great detail about how she juggled high school and the under-18s year leading into the draft. So yeah, once again, we got a great guest on the show. I think she's our third number one draft pick, Rainsey. We've already had 3 on, and we're only at episode 13.
We're rolling out the big guns, aren't we? Hey?
Yeah, no, she's
Shift to Shane to be happy with that. The great talent manager for the AFL, getting all the top line draft picks on the show. So yeah, that's fantastic.
Without a doubt, if you want to get drafted, just listen to the podcast. Can we be that crew, Rainsey?
We'll try.
We'll try. So yeah, that's it. We had a great chat with Ellie, guys, and we'll jump into it straight away. So this is episode number 13 with rising star Richmond's Ellie McKenzie. Ellie McKenzie, welcome to the show. We've had you on our radar for a while now, so thanks for taking the time to jump on and have a chat to us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Now, let's set the scene a little bit for the listeners. It's the 1st of October at the time we're recording the podcast. So the men's season has just finished, but for the girls, preseason is in full swing. Where are you at with your training at the moment, and what does a regular week look like for an AFLW player at this time of year?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy with all the COVID stuff that's going on at the moment. It's changed our plans a little bit, but at the moment, with our induction period starting just this week, we're in 4 times a week. We'll train Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then we'll have a Saturday session as well. So it's pretty big commitment, and all the girls who work full-time, I know this part of the year is a bit of a struggle to get into the rhythm of things, but for me, slowly working through a bit of rehab, it's good to get in with the girls and see all the faces and get stuck into pre-season again.
It's great to hear pre-season in full swing. And just on that note of obviously going from sort of off-season to pre-season and then into the season, there's obviously always the importance of having passions outside of footy. Take your mind off things. Obviously, it can get pretty full on during the season and definitely in pre-season. Have you got anything that sort of takes your mind off things, hobbies, study, anything you're doing currently?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm a massive footy head, so I definitely need something outside of that to kind of focus on. So for me, I'm doing uni at the moment, just part-time, doing a Bachelor of Business at Swinburne, so that's keeping me pretty busy. Even though it's online, it's still a good little distraction that I have that I can just kind of do on the side and then go into the club in the afternoon. And it kind of keeps my mind off things. And I've had a few little hobbies in COVID lockdown. So I've been doing a bit of drawing, which is a bit of a new one for me. So just trying to keep my well-being up.
That's great. Drawing. What are you painting? Are you sketching? What are your subjects as well? What do you draw?
I think more sketching. I'm not a great drawer. I can more copy things off of photos, so I try and sketch little cartoons, but not that serious, just a bit of fun.
Love it. That's great. And so Ellie, before we talk about your AFLW career, which we'll touch on shortly, I'd love to hear about your junior career. Obviously, you played at Fitzroy. It's well documented that your family have been a great support for you over the years. You grew up with your brother Tom, who's 2 years older than you, and went on to be rookie listed at North Melbourne. I'm curious to know what it was like growing up alongside Tom, being so close in age, but knowing that his pathway wasn't available to you purely because there was no women's competition at the time.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one to think about. I think me going through my junior career, it didn't really come across my mind that I wasn't really going to have that same opportunity. I think it didn't really hit me until I was maybe 14, and then the AFLW competition came in anyway. So I think for me, I just loved playing footy, and playing with the boys was really enjoyable, and they were all really accepting of me. And I had that really good relationship with Tom because of sport that we were both so passionate about. So I think, we just both enjoyed playing and playing together as well, and going for a kick and going to watch the footy with Dad as well was a big part of our childhood. But I think as I got to the older years, it was a little bit evident that, of course, I wasn't going to have that pathway. And there would have been a few times where I thought, I don't really know what I'm going to do, because footy was kind of my whole life, and I loved it so much. But luckily enough for me, I think I've been in the perfect age bracket of coming into AFLW. It's been established for a few seasons now, and I think for me it was kind of the perfect time that it did come about.
Yeah, beautiful. And obviously Tom playing the VFL now, I believe.
Yeah, he's playing for Coburg in the VFL.
Beautiful. And do you guys train together much, or I guess in lockdown you've spent a bit more time together? How do you guys help each other develop your footy skills? Yeah,
it was definitely big in my draft year, I think. So last year, all those lockdowns that we had, we did train a lot together. It was just good to have someone to kick the footy with. So I felt really lucky that I did have him, because I know a lot of people in my position might have been only children, or they didn't have parents who would go and kick the footy with them. So it was good that I had Tom. I could just go do my running session. He might have a different running session to do, but then we could come together and have a kick and kind of keep up our skills. So I was really lucky that I did have him.
Well, it definitely paid dividends, Ellie, in your first season. It was an incredible one. After being obviously the number one pick, you went on to win the AFLPA's Best First Year Player and come equal second to the Richmond Best and Fairest, which is a huge achievement for an 18-year-old. How did you reflect on your debut season? Obviously, it's looking back. There's always some things you sort of pick up on reflection, but you're full steam ahead now. But did you have a bit of time to reflect on your first year?
Yeah, I think it hasn't really sunk in still, I don't think. Hearing you rattle those things off is still pretty crazy in my head. So, yeah, I mean, I loved every moment of that season, and it was everything I dreamed it would be and more. And I guess to have those awards at the end of the year was kind of just a little added bonus, little cherry on top, I guess, of that season that I really enjoyed. Obviously, we didn't really have the success that we probably wanted, but I think as a club, we took that as a bit of a development year, and hopefully in the next few seasons we'll be pushing for finals and have a bit more success. But yeah, I think I've found a little bit of time to reflect and just, yeah, I think it's just so crazy that I'm actually in this position that I am in, and it's my childhood dream. So yeah, I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, for sure. And I've been lucky enough to actually watch you live, and this is a bit of a strange one, but I've actually sat next to your dad at Punt Road during one of your games.
Really?
I was there watching Katie, and I found myself, I think, in between your parents and I think it was Sarah Hosking's family. Now, Sarah's poor mum was quite panic-stricken every time her daughter went near the ball, but it was a very physical game from memory. But in contrast, I don't think I've ever seen someone so calmly engrossed in the game as your dad was on that day. How important has his support been for your career to date? And is he always that calm and focused on your footy?
Yeah, he's always been like that. I think calm's probably not the right word. I think he's just internalising all the things he's thinking and hoping that I'm going to play well. And he's got that real dead-eye focus of just wanting to watch me and seeing what I'm doing. And then after every game, I'll come to him and ask what I did well, what I need to improve on. And he's always got really good feedback for me, and always has. So I think I attribute a lot of my footy knowledge to him. And over my junior years, he's coached me a few times, and that was a different experience as well. But yeah, he's got really good footy knowledge, and I think that's really helped me and my brother as well.
Yeah, fantastic. It's always important to have those key personnel in your corner, and no matter what, obviously the family's always there, and it's fantastic to hear. Not too sure if he taught you a fair bit. I'm sure he would have about being an inside midfielder. So you know him for your strength in the contest. Not too dissimilar to Christian Petrarca, who won the Norm Smith on last Saturday night. Do you bring this down to your, like, physicality in the contest and strength? Is it more of a mindset stuff, or do you think it's your actual sort of physicality?
I think it's a bit of both. I think I've really benefited from coming through Maribyrnong Sports Academy, where I did my VCE. They had a lot of gym stuff set up for us there, and I was able to kind of get a hang of all of that before I came into an AFL club, and that's really helped me kind of develop my strength, I think, and my power. But at the same time, I think a lot of it is mindset. I think for me, when I make a mistake or something or fumble the ball, then I just have this mindset of I really want to make up for it, and I really want to hit the contest hard and bring my physicality. I know that's kind of something I have an edge over a few players in the league, so I think I try and use that to my advantage.
Yeah, and certainly doing so. I think it's rare for a young player in the AFL or the AFLW to, I guess, really assert themselves on the contest physically in the first year. I think Pal Pepper from Port sort of had a similar first year, but it's really paying off, and like you said, it's a great edge. And I can't imagine that anyone gets to your level of skill without doing some form of extra top-up training, whether it's putting in reps by yourself before training or seeking someone out to help challenge your skills further. What extra training did you do growing up outside of club training, whether it's Knights or Fitzroy, to help develop your footy skills and give you that edge?
Yeah, I definitely did do some extras kind of leading into the draft and a few years before that as well. As I said before, I was just really lucky that I was at Maribyrnong. They had all the facilities I needed to kind of do that. And my best mate, Jess Fitzgerald, who also got drafted, we kind of worked closely together, especially in our draft year. And we'd go in before school, get in maybe 6:30, do a gym session, have a kick of the footy, and then I guess have our school day, and then probably go to NAB League training after that. So I think I also really enjoyed having a bit of a routine and getting those extras in kind of early in the day and then having school, and then I could have my training after school as well. So I think a lot of that power that I do have is kind of because of that.
Yeah, super important, the extras, and obviously building the old theory of those 10,000 hours is important. Obviously, put the hours in and obviously get the results. But just on the theme of extras, do you still do some away from the club these days? And if so, how do you manage your workload to ensure you're developing your football while not overtraining? Now, disclosure: there's no one from the Richmond Football Club listening to this, or there could be. So, far away.
There's definitely a fine line, I think, between doing too much and doing some extras. So I think I definitely try and get into the club on the off days, do a bit of recovery, then maybe get a bit of skills in or a bit of extra gym. At the moment, just focusing on the rehab. But I think last year I would try and get in on almost all the off days, just so I thought I would get that extra edge of recovery and get a bit of touch in as well. So I think it was definitely important, and also using coaches like they're there for you. So trying to use those resources as much as I could, and the AFLW season's so short and it goes past in a flash. So I tried to make the most of it, I think.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned before the routine that you had back in high school. So you'd go before school, do a bit of training, you spend the day at school, and then leave for NAB League. Coming straight out of high school and going straight into the AFLW, how did you find the transition when you didn't have that structured routine from high school? Obviously, you had to do it in the middle of a global pandemic as well, just to make things a little bit more difficult. How did you handle that transition, and do you have a routine that you've built yourself now?
Yeah, it was definitely difficult, and coming into the club with all the restrictions, as you said, it was hard to kind of get to know everyone. But at the same time, it was almost a good thing, because we had these groups of 10 that we'd be training in, and I could get to know that group of 10 and learn all their names, and then instead of being thrown into the deep end, I guess, with learning everyone's names, all the coaches and all that. So I think that transition was actually okay. It kind of slowly built us draftees in, and I think the routine that I did have at school was definitely a help as well. But not having that kind of 9 to 3:30 day of school left a big gap in my day, especially since AFLW's in the afternoon. So I think I struggled a little bit there early on, but I've got the hang of things now, I think, and with uni as well, that's kind of filled a hole. So I think I've got a good routine now. Yeah,
for sure. And now, typically, player managers don't get the same level of attention as their athletes, but I want to put the spotlight on your manager, Alex, for a second. Shout out to Alex for giving the tick of approval to come on the show. Now, for those that don't know Alex, she's an absolute weapon. She's killing it at the moment, looking after the best AFLW players, not just yourself, but Katie Brennan, who's a friend of the show, Taylor Harris, Maddie Prasparkas, the list goes on. Her company's called More Than Management, which I've heard is a very accurate reflection of the care that she provides her athletes with. How much have you relied on Alex's support, not only throughout your first year in the AFLW, but also during the whole draft process? She's been with you right from the start.
Yeah, she has. She's been massive for me, definitely. And kind of, as you mentioned before, when she approached me and my family to kind of see if we could get something together, she really emphasised the fact that we were going to have more of a personal relationship rather than kind of an athlete-manager relationship, and that was something that really stood out to me. And Alex was a massive help for me in my draft year, and she was able to get some extra resources together for me, even though it was in COVID, and get some weights for me and things like that. And she was always kind of just that person on my shoulder that I could go to if I was stressing about the draft or anything like that. So and she was at my house on draft night as well, so it was good to kind of share the experience with her, and she'd put a lot of effort into kind of getting me to where I was. So I was really grateful for her, and going forward last year she was really good, or last season she was really good for me as well, just being a massive support. So I'm very grateful to have her in my corner.
Yeah, that's amazing. And obviously I've been involved with a lot of the play managers, and I think we've discussed briefly on this show before about young people coming through the draft, boys or girls. How much importance do you sort of put on not worrying about too much about getting a manager? Because I know a lot of the boys that I work with, that are looking and a bit stressed about signing with the right manager and things like that, or find the balance between actually just going out there and playing footy and letting the rest sort of take care of itself. Obviously, you're a highly rated junior and obviously the number one pick. Was it a process that was a bit sort of daunting at the time? And any recommendations out there for young girls that are going through a similar process?
Yeah, I think for me, coming into that draft year, I kind of had the mindset of just play footy, enjoy it, and if anything comes from it in terms of management, then take that. But I think for me, it was just focusing on my footy and doing the best that I could. And then I was lucky that Alex did come along. But I think in AFLW especially, it's not needed that you do need a manager. So I don't think it would be something that everyone should be stressing about. I remember having a presentation from the AFL at I think I was bottom age, Vic Metro. They did a big presentation on player management and a few other things as well. But they kind of emphasised that you don't really need a manager to be playing AFLW. You can do it without. So I think that was something that probably stuck in a lot of our heads. But I think, I'm really lucky that Alex did kind of approach me, and I think that was just off the back of me focusing on my footy and trying not to worry about external things like that.
Yeah, fantastic. And a side note, we understand you're a Hawthorn supporter growing up. Were there any players from the Hawthorn team? Obviously, it was a great era in your time growing up. Was there any team, in that team, or any particular players that you sort of modelled your game on?
Yeah, it was a pretty successful period, that's for sure. It almost felt like we were gearing up for a grand final every year when I was younger, so it was pretty good. But Isaac Smith was someone that I really looked up to as a kid. Early on, I was a bit more of a winger, and with his left foot, I kind of looked up to that. And he was someone that I tried to model my game on early on. Bit sad to see him go to Geelong, but he was probably my childhood hero growing up.
Yeah, awesome. And I guess as the AFLW came around, there became female role models as well in the footy space, which is fantastic. And I want to ask you about the Richmond skipper, Katie Brennan. We obviously know her quite well here in the show and away from the club, but what's your relationship like with Katie, and internally, at Punt Road internally, how important has her leadership been for not only you but all the younger players?
Yeah, Katie's been massive, and I think it's something I've copped a bit of flack for, how much I hyped her up coming into the draft and even into the club as well. So I think I'll always say that Katie's such a great person and great footballer, but even better person. So very grateful to have her, and I know for all the draftees coming in this year and for me and the other girls who did come in last year, she was a massive help. She was always there. If you needed anything, you could just go to her. And I think her leadership that she's brought to Richmond is something that they probably haven't seen before. And she's a bit of an iconic player in the AFLW. So I think she's going to lead us into a really good period. And she's been able to lead us through this period of a little bit, not too much success, but she's led us through really well. And I think everyone really trusts her, and there's no one you'd rather have than her as a skipper, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, we love her, don't we, Harry? She's obviously a big friend of the show and done a few things for us. So she's just unreal to sort of listen to. With the episode we had her on the show a couple of weeks ago, obviously just those things you pick up, and no doubt in person it'd be amazing, Ellie, to work with her. You spoke about the future and the next let's call it the next sort of 3 to 5 years. Within now, it's just such a great pathway now for young girls and coming through the system. Where do you see the competition in terms of sort of the game style in that sort of next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting, that's for sure. I think having these girls come through now, I think my year and maybe the year before that, probably the first lot of girls who have come through playing all the way from Auskick through the whole pathway and then into the AFLW. So I think we'll start to see the benefits of that in the next 2 to 3 years even, having these girls come through who are very skilled and they'll bring the competition up as they come through. So I think that's the most exciting thing for me, and I'm sure you will see the game get quicker and higher skilled, and it'll be different if you compare back to that round one we saw at Icon Park, Carlton Collingwood, everyone thought that was great, but then you compare it to where we are now and you can see the difference, and to think that it's going to be even better in 3 to 5 years is really exciting.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see, and obviously people like yourself are, I guess, showing that pathway is there, and like you said, the benefits are only going to come probably quicker than what we expect. So moving to the season upcoming, obviously we know you're already an extremely well-rounded player, but what are your what part of your game are you looking to build on for next season?
Yeah, there's a few things that I've kind of addressed with the coaching staff when we've had talks pre-season about what I want to improve on. I think the main thing that has been kind of an improvement for me is my aerobic capacity, something that I've been trying to focus on, and hopefully after this rehab phase I'll be able to focus on that even more. But I think that'll just help me get to more contests as a midfielder and then impact those contests hopefully as well. So I think that would be one of the main things, but also trying to work on being a bit more versatile and knowing that I can play forward and mid and trying to work with that. And I think I'll try and do a bit more forward craft as we come through pre-season, and I'll work on that. But I think, yeah, those would probably be the two things I'm looking at the moment.
Yeah, awesome. And for the people out there that aren't familiar with how an AFLW club works, do you come up with a development plan? So you mentioned you sit down with the coaches. Do you come up with a development plan at the start of the year? Is there like a document that you use and you refer to throughout the year? What does that whole process look like of identifying what you want to build your preseason on, and then going out and executing that?
Yeah, we definitely have a development plan. We've been put into groups of, I think, maybe 6 or 7, and we all have one coach that we're assigned to as kind of our development coach, and we meet with them kind of throughout pre-season. We put together a document where we can write down what our strengths are, or we like to call them our weapons, what our weapons are, and how we can improve our weapons as well, because that's also a massive focus, and then also looking at areas of improvement and who we can go to, what we can do, and all of that jazz about how we can improve those things. So yeah, it's a big process that we go through, but hopefully we'll reap the rewards at the end of the season.
That's fantastic. And just on that, the IDP, do you mind sharing us with a couple? You don't have to share everything, but what's sort of the things you're sort of working on that obviously we touched on before, your contest work and things like that. What's some of your key weapons in your game?
Yeah, I think the main thing I had down is one of my weapons was my confidence to play in multiple roles, as I kind of mentioned before. Being able to play forward and mid was something that the coaches and I kind of addressed as maybe one of my strengths. But yeah, obviously looking to continue to improve that. I think a few areas of improvement I had written on that sheet were working on my physicality in the contests. Obviously having a bit more of a bigger body is an advantage, so and we're looking to have a few more inside mids join. So I think there's a few of us all working together to improve our physicality at the contest. So yeah, there's a few things written down there.
Fantastic. And touched just briefly on before, so an area for improvement or something you're trying to get better at is your endurance. Do you do the 2K time trial? Is that where you get tested at?
We have a bit of a different one. We have a 6-minute run, so I definitely would rather that than a 2K. It's a lot shorter, which is good. But yeah, it's a good one because it's more like the finish line is more up to you rather than you've got to run that 2 kilometres. It's kind of like you can push yourself to how far you want to push yourself. So I think it's a good test.
That's and then so coming through just for our younger listeners out there, obviously it's always the biggest question I get asked with young footballers too. When are we doing the 2K? When are we doing the beat test or now the yo-yo test? Because it's the hardest. Could you give us any of your PBs on your 2K or yo-yo or anything like that coming through just for our younger listeners?
I'm not the greatest tester for endurance based tests, but I think my NAB League best 2K would have been, I think, in between 8:30 and 8:50, something like that, which I know is definitely probably below average. But I think the thing that I tried to focus on, I knew that I wasn't a great tester, and I think that was a bit of a mindset thing as well, kind of coming through, but I tried to impress in my drills instead, try and make up for it there. So at the end of the day, it's just a test, and they're not going to judge your whole footy career on it. So, I think that was kind of how I wrapped my head around it.
Yeah, you've absolutely nailed that. I think that's great advice. We talk about it so much on the show, pretty much with every guest that we talk to, but getting lost in harping over the things you need to work on and actually forgetting to build your game around, like you said, your weapons. And if you can, especially coming through the draft, if you can show that there's something that you're exceptionally good at, then clubs are going to look at that and take you, at the very least, just on potential that you've got that weapon. So I think that's a fantastic lesson for anyone out there looking to get on a list. So just moving on, are there any teammates that you think this year, Ellie, or it can be anyone across the AFL, AFLW that you know particularly? Are there any players that you think will have a breakout year in the coming season? Anyone that we should keep our eye on?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think a good friend of mine that she's recently had shoulder surgery a couple of months ago, Gabby Newton, former number 1 draft pick. I think she's set to have a big year. She's had a few injury kind of scares and niggles along the way and hasn't been able to kind of show herself completely. I think she'd be someone to watch from the Doggies. I think from Richmond, obviously the likes of Monique Conti, she's always going to have a ripper season. But I think looking at a few of the younger girls, hopefully they'll be able to impress and hopefully see a few of the draftees come in and impact as well. I couldn't pick a set person to kind of look for, but I think across the board, just looking at the new girls coming through, I know they're always so exciting to watch and they always impact immediately when they get in. So I think that would probably be my people to watch.
Yeah, it seems like there's a fair bit of talent coming through at the Tigers in the AFLW space. It's really important. Obviously, something to try and emulate with the male program there, and hopefully some success not around too far around the corner for you guys. And wishing you all the best for that. So, just on the sort of the on a bit of the lead in said before about the aspiring AFLW players coming through, young girls. What's some of the tips or any sort of words of advice you'd give these girls that, in particular, probably coming through the talent pathways now? Is there any sort of things that sort of stand out to you that you'd pass on?
I think the main thing would just be enjoying that experience of playing under 18 footy. It's a lot different to AFLW and you get really close with the girls who are all your age and it's a great experience. I would just say really enjoy it. In terms of kind of more footy central, I would advise to, like, as we talked before, kind of focus on your weapons and really improve them, and that'll get you seen by clubs. And I think that would be a thing to focus on. Obviously, working on your areas of improvement as well, but I think focus on something that you're really good at and use that as your weapon, and hopefully that'll get you seen.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's about all we've got time for today, Ellie. We'll wrap it up there. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your schedule to join us on the One-on-One Football podcast. I know I speak on behalf of Rainsey and the listeners out there when I say that we've thoroughly enjoyed the chat and learned a lot in the process. You've got a fantastic perspective on footy and an extremely bright future ahead of you. We can't wait to watch how your career evolves from what's been an incredible first season, and hopefully a few more wins on the board for the Tigers in 2022. So thanks for jumping on, Ellie.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Thanks, Ellie.
Thanks for listening to the One-on-One Football podcast. If you got something out of today's episode, we'd love it if you could leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to stay updated on special guests, new episodes, and more, please subscribe to the show on your chosen platform. And finally, if you have any questions for Rainsey or myself, or you want to get a particular guest on the show, please reach out. Our email address is podcast@oneonOnefootball.com.au. Thanks, guys. We'll see you for the next episode.